Serious. Women of Reddit who were proposed to by their so and said no. What's your story? Asterisk asterisk attention. Serious. Tag notice asterisk asterisk asterisk. Jokes, puns, and off-topic comments are not permitted. https://www.reddit.com/r/wiki/index #wiki_rule_6- closing parenthesis in asterisk any comment, parent or child. Parent comments that aren't from the target group will be removed, along with their child replies. Report comments that violate these rules. Posts that have few relevant answers within the first hour, and posts that are not appropriate for the serious tag will be removed. Consider doing an AMA request instead. Thanks for your cooperation and enjoy the discussion. I am a bot, and this action was performed automatically. Please contact the moderators of this subreddit. Message compose to =r *reddit if you have any questions or concerns. I loved him. If he asked me to get married 3 days before, I would have said yes, but I received a message 2 days before the proposal from someone telling me that he was part of a gang, with proof and everything. A few years back, I was dating this guy. At first, he seemed very kind, sweet and happy. Handsome too. I thought he was a great catch, especially as some toxic friends of mine were lowering my self-esteem. A few months after we started dating, he started changing. It was subtle at first. He would stop spending time with me and blaming me for it. Then came the gaslighting and manipulation. He started isolating me from my family, and hurting me when I refused to do things for him. Eventually, I got the strength to deal with the situation and tell him that we were over. To get me to stay, he hosted a large party with lots of friends and publicly asked me to marry him. I said no. A girl I was casually dating, not even in a relationship with, proposed in front of her toddler niece and nephews and a large crowd of people at the aquarium. Even asked her nephew, "Do you want Op to be anti-op?" with the ring in hand. I said yes in public and then no privately. Never saw her again after that one. Ex asked me over lunch to marry him. He'd broken up with me about once a week for the last few months over nothing. He had serious emotional, mood issues that have now been diagnosed, but he was just a really difficult person to be around in general. I started laughing because it was just absolutely ridiculous. He asked why I was laughing and I brought up how he broke up with me every single week. He flat out said he wanted to get married because then he knew he wouldn't be able to leave, as if that stopped people from just getting a divorce. We broke up for good not long after this, but the whole thing was bananas. This is one for me. I have done this twice. 1. We were dating for about 4 years, and were in our early 20s. I felt unsure about our rest of life compatibility and suggested we needed to have some serious conversations to work out our plans moving forward after uni. All of these conversations made me increasingly sure we were incompatible. Surprise, surprise. They made him increasingly sure about the future and he wanted to get married. We were literally doing the deed under a lit Christmas tree at 3 a.m. and he asked me to marry him. I said we weren't ready, bad plan. He still didn't have any idea what that would look like or how we would work out some fairly serious things around our location, jobs, etc. Eventually I got tired of saying no to a marriage I didn't think would work, and felt pushed and trapped. So I broke up with him. We remain friends. I was a bridesmaid in his wedding a couple years ago. It was the right choice. 2. Only dating very briefly. He proposed in a restaurant, with a terrifyingly large ring, and provided me a PDF copy of his tax return so I could see he would be a good provider. Everything he did told me he hadn't really ever listened to me or got to know me properly. I said yes in the restaurant, to avoid causing embarrassment, and called it all off afterwards. He turned into an obsessive stalker and I had to get an AVO in the end. We were 19 and 21 and had been together for 2 years. He took me to Paris, pulled out all the stops and proposed under the Eiffel Tower. I told him it wasn't a no, it was a not yet, if he would wait. I wanted to travel and knew I was too young for marriage. We ended up traveling together, making amazing memories through the years. We got engaged when I was 24 and married when I was 27 in the most perfect service and have been happily married 4 years next week. He proposed as a knee-jerk reaction when we were going through a rough patch. It was a pretty inappropriate gesture and I told him no and why it was a no. He wasn't being flippant, just turns out he was scared of where our relationship was going. We ended up working on ourselves and were married 5 years later. One ex always proposed when we were fighting and I was about to leave. Sometimes literally mid-yelling would just drop to one knee. I always said, no. I don't want a proposal to end a fight. I want it to be special. A friend from high school whom I had known for about a year proposed to me while I was in my first semester of college. The proposal was made over the phone. Long distance. This was in the late 1960s. I never saw him as more than a great friend. My mom thought he was really great, which was nice, but no reason to basis a marriage. He really was a nice guy and we had fun together, but I was not in love with him. A few years ago I found out that he died of cancer in the mid-1980s and I was sorry to learn of his death. We did not keep in touch and I only saw him once after the proposal and he had married a lovely woman who I thought suited him. Seems I was wrong as she divorced him at some point. My ex was an abusive narcissist. I was 21, very naive. First relationship. He was 54 and divorced. I had been gaslit and pushed into the relationship but didn't realize that until later. He demanded keys to my apartment and passwords but refused to give me his and a whole list of crap like this. Now I wouldn't put up with it, but at the time I did. He proposed at 11 months but by then he was verbally and emotionally abusive and had come close to hitting me. My sperm donor father was a very abusive alcoholic, so I only have memories of his BS and I knew I didn't want to repeat the abuse cycle. My mom, grandma, and aunt have all had abusive husbands and I didn't want it to continue with me. Once ex-BF became abusive, I warned him to knock that shit off or I'd leave. He proposed after calling me a stupid bitch. I followed through. I changed the locks in my apartment and my passwords. He actually called me after I changed my password screaming about it. I broke up with him. Why the hell is he trying to get into my stuff? After a few weeks of me refusing to go back to him, he contacted my boss and accused me of stealing and contacted the fire department I volunteered with and accused me of endangering my team to showboat and get attention. Thankfully both believed me over him and he was blacklisted. He tried to show up several more times at FD events and he was always immediately escorted off property. I'm still glad I got rid of that a-hole. He thought asking me to marry him and tattooing private property of op would be a good way to make me forget serial cheating. I had a boyfriend cheat on me so many times. The breakup was hard, but then he got activated from the military reserves. I didn't meet anyone till 2 months before he came back. The whole time I wanted him back, but he and I weren't really officially together, and I knew he was talking to another girl the whole time he was gone. He came back, and saw the other girl first. He says to break up with her. "You're right." And I realized I didn't like him, thank God. He showed up at my apartment, saw me with my new boyfriend, and proposed in a crying fit. It was horrid. 3 months earlier and I'd have done it, but thank God for the timing of things. We were both 18 and still in high school. It was around 10 months into our relationship. I broke up with him. I get an urgent call from him to, please come over to my house. I need you. I was legitimately worried at this point. Went to his house. There was a dress on his bed and a note to meet him at the bay. At this point I'm just annoyed and didn't pick up on it. I drive to the bay and I walk up to him dressed in a suit. I'm so confused at this point. We sit down to talk and he goes into the speech and stands up to kneel. At that moment I realize what's up. I quickly stand with him and ask him to stop. I didn't want to ruin this moment for him forever. We just sat there and cried together. He thought that if he made a grand gesture that I would want to get back together. If anything it showed me he would truly do, say anything to get what he wants. It was heartbreaking all around. A girl I knew discussed engagement with her boyfriend, said he better plan a romantic proposal. He planned a nice meal and popped the ring in the champers. She said no because it wasn't a unique proposal. They had a running joke, and in fitting with it, he slotted the ring in a boiled egg, to be unique. She said no. Before he had chance to propose again, she cheated on him. When he broke it off, she slept with his brother for revenge. A true love story. I said no the first time my ex-husband asked me to marry him because my mom legitimately cried when I said I thought he was going to propose. Like, your soul is breaking crying. She said he would make my life miserable and she didn't want me to experience that kind of heartbreak. I got married to him a few months later because I found out I was pregnant. Honestly, Mom was not wrong. Everything about our relationship sets of red flags. I was 21 and he was 27. We started dating when I was 16. He didn't like any of my friends, high school or college. He checked my text messages all the time. He had me move in with him so he could take care of me during my final stressful year of college, but I ended up doing all the housework, cooking, and cleaning. He made decent enough money but spent it all on luxuries for him, to the point where we were constantly broke. After we had my daughter, he insisted on moving away from my family to live in another city. I had no support and he was absolutely useless at helping with anything baby related. And then my dumb ass stuck around for another 8 years. Honestly, should have bounced on the second proposal too. RAAAAAAH fucking grets. I was 19, and I was a mess. I'd recently been raped, and wasn't getting therapy. My father had been diagnosed as terminally ill with lung cancer. I was extremely depressed, and I was dating a guy the first didn't like, because I was having trouble saying no to anything to do with sex or relationships since I just felt like trash after being raped. And then I got pregnant. The guy the first was dating heavily pressured me into having sex without a condom. Just this once, and I didn't feel like I had the right to say no. I was feeling extremely guilty about the rape. I knew at once I wanted to abort. I couldn't take care of myself, let alone a baby. But the guy wanted the baby, and proposed to me. He had this dream that I would be his 1950s-style stay-at-home wife and he would go to work to provide for us. I offered to have the baby if he would look after it, but he refused that option. I said no, of course. I had an abortion and have never regretted it. We broke up immediately. It's not exactly a fun story, but it's a real one. We had been together for about 4 years I think, and he just kinda popped it out of the blue, like, we should get married, style. So I was like, are you asking me? And he said yeah. So I said no lol. Basically we were both punky street kids and I just didn't want to get married, because marriage is just a contract OFC. So I rolled my eyes at him but I was secretly very flattered. We stayed together pretty much for years and he asked me a few more times over the course of that, and well, after about 10 years he finally wore me down and I said, okay, I guess it doesn't matter. Which was as close as I think I was ever going to get to saying yes to anyone. Lol. He is definitely the only guy that could have worn me down like that. We are still together, 16 years since I first said no smirk. We'd been together about a year at this point, and I'd made it clear to him that marriage was a big scary thing I wasn't ready for yet. About a month later, we went away for a weekend to one of our usual haunts. I was looking out the hotel window at something when he suddenly said my name. I turned around and he was stood there with a ring, and then asked me to marry him. I was so shocked and upset that he clearly didn't listen that I ran out into the street crying. I called my parents and one of my friends, all of whom were incredibly pissed off that he didn't respect my wishes, and wondered what the hell I was supposed to do. I eventually composed myself and went back into the hotel, but obviously we were both very upset. He said we could just break it off if it's too much, or we could stay together, and he'd promised not to mention marriage again. We took the second option. We did get married a couple of years later, but this was mainly because he was the least shitty partner I'd had at that point, and I did that dangerous thing of, well, he does A, but at least he doesn't do B and C. B, I was content, and thought, happy, was a daft Hollywood thing, and C, I thought I was being mature and grown up, and wanted to reward him for sort of looking after me when I'd been ill a few months prior. We got divorced about 5 years ago, and I realize now that not only were we very incompatible, but he was incredibly pushy and always found a way to get what he wanted. He told me later he had planned to propose in the restaurant, so thank Christ he didn't do that. He was proposing to show how he was fully committed and dedicated to me and only me after he was caught cheating. He brought me up to his apartment about a 2-hour drive from my college. I was basically trapped there. He asked me while he was feeling insecure about the relationship and figured a proposal would lock me in place. I dodged it for a few days, but I needed to get back to classes and he wouldn't take me back till I said yes. I figured he was a bright guy and would come to his senses eventually. He got me back to school. Eventually he realized that coercion is not a good proposal strategy. An ex. I told him things were going downhill and I wanted to end things, so he decided to propose to me. Thank God not in public, as an attempt to get me to stay. I said no. Sold my great-grandmom's wedding set to buy a gaudy diamond monstrosity of a ring. I had asked him to use the engagement ring to propose with, as I would have been the fourth generation to wear it. He said it was ugly and awful and wouldn't have his woman wearing second-hand garbage. I dumped his ass and got the set back from the pawn shop. Just realized this was the second time I dumped a guy based on this kind of behavior. I sure can pick him. Dating a guy for a few years. Was 20 years old at the time. Very controlling, wasn't going great. We were opening Christmas presents with his family when he asked. He proposed while saying he loved the woman I would become one day. I said yes in public, but no in private. If you don't even love me now, why propose now? Needless to say, it didn't last long. About 3 or 4 months after we started dating, he asked. It was a moment. We had a fun night out, a little buzzed, in a cab over the Williamsburg Bridge looking at the NYC skyline. Weather was beautiful. I think we were both feeling immortal. But I said, you know, I'm saying no now because we haven't been dating so long and we've had a bit to drink and we're just caught up in the moment. He seemed dejected. He was still dejected days later. That said, a few years later, after we'd been together long enough, I said yes and we got hitched, so we still got the happy ending. I had an ex-boyfriend that I hadn't even seen or spoken to in 3 months show up to my parents' house at 3 a.m. My stepmom would stay up to all hours of the night watching TV, so she saw his car lights when he pulled into the side driveway. She came and got me furious he was there and asked why I lied about breaking up with him. I had to explain we were broken up and I had no idea why he was there. When I went outside, he was leaning on his car looking lovestruck and crazy. He told me that the universe wanted us together and it was cosmic fate. He then pulled out a frat boy bottle opener ring with a cat toy tied to it and told me he had an important question to ask me. I told him no flat out before he even asked. I pointed at his car and told him to go home. When he asked why, I listed all the things that led me to break up with him, including him dropping out of school multiple times and not having a job once during our 2-year relationship. He told me he did have a job now. When I asked where he worked, because I knew he was lying, he looked me in the eyes and said if he told me that he'd have to kill me. I had enough and told him to get the hell off my family's property, and he left reluctantly, telling me he'd be back. I never saw him again, but I heard through the grapevine that he told others that he had shown up in a tux with a huge diamond ring that I threw on the ground. I used to wonder what would have happened if my stepmom didn't see his car pull up. Sorry for typos, I'm on mobile. Thanks for watching. See you later.